Okay. So as I said, this is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube eventually, hopefully within the next week or so, because I'll have more editing than normal. So welcome to the Northern Virginia Linux User Group Job Hunting Seminar. We did a similar thing, I'd say about a year and a half, maybe a little more ago. I think it's a good idea to do this every so often because I know there are plenty of people in the user group that are job hunting at the moment. So hopefully this will help you. We do have a pretty jam-packed agenda. We'll be having the introductions, followed by me talking about some of the job hunting tips I have come across as what some might say I've become a professional job hunter almost over the past few years. Then followed by Suzie Grieco. Did I pronounce that right, Suzie? I've never.
Perfect.
Okay. Suzie Grieco from SG2 Recruiting. She'll be talking about finding jobs in the cleared space for those who have a clearance. Brandon Trimble from Motion Recruiting will talk to us about two things. One, working with IT recruiters, finding full-time roles. Mostly this is with regard to us unwashed masses without clearance. Followed by talking about finding contract roles in the same space. Finally, we have Adam Avitabile. Sorry, Adam. Avitabile from Ridgeline International for working directly with company recruiters. We'll have a brief Q&A, and then we'll have a breakout room, which we will actually move to a different avenue other than Zoom, and there's a link at the end. I will say with both Suzie and Adam, their companies are sponsors of NoVaLUG. Suzie provides us food when we meet in person.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but she's provided coffee and bagels and other things. And Ridgeline International provide us the space to meet when we are meeting in person. So hopefully, eventually we'll get back to that. I have worked with Suzie and Brandon directly. I have only high and good quality things to say about both Suzie and Brandon and the companies they work for. I'm very picky on my recruiters, and I have never gotten an email for a Windows desktop support role that I'd be absolutely perfect for from either company. Because I don't have a clearance, I haven't been able to work with Adam directly, but I know that Ridgeline is a good quality company. They've helped us out a lot. So I have personal experience in one way or another with every person and or company that we have here, and I highly recommend all of them. So the little more of an introduction. Suzie is president of SG2 Recruiting, and she is a board member at Recruit DC. I'll let Suzie give any further intro that she wants to do for a couple minutes. So go for it, Suzie.
Well, thank you, John. And I am looking for the day when we get to all meet together again in person. SG2 is a small boutique recruiting process outsourcing firm. We specialize in hiring or looking for and searching for and direct hiring to cleared IT professionals to federal government contractors primarily, but also have done some recruiting for organizations that sort of both work in the cleared space as well as in the commercial space. As someone who's also a member of the Recruit DC board, I have been active in the recruiting community for the past, I want to say 5 to 7 years, working alongside recruiters to sort of share and hopefully inform other recruiters about best practices so they are not alienating job seekers with random, you're a perfect Windows guy, but you are more of a Linux systems engineer. So that has enabled me to learn a little bit more about a broader set of recruiting skill sets that hopefully I will be able to impart to the team. So it's not necessarily just focused on recruiting in the IT, in the cleared space, but I'm also able to address questions about the broader recruiting community in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Susie. Next speaking will be Brandon from Motion Recruitment. Brandon is the team manager of Staffing Solutions. For those of you who are not aware of Motion Recruitment but have heard of JobSpring or WorkBridge Associates, both of those recruiters were subsidiaries of Motion Recruitment. And if you ever went to meet them in person, their offices, they were competitors on the same floor, literally off the elevator, you go left to Motion, you go right to JobSpring. So it kind of makes sense in my mind that Motion Recruitment did what they did. So I will let Brandon go with.
Well said, John. Yeah, I mean, we were subsidiary companies now. I think a couple months ago we merged, but and in essence, you know, the team that I manage, we focus on placing infrastructure professionals around the DC metro area. I've been managing this team for about 6 years now. We've interacted a few times, John, and there's, I think, another John we interacted a couple years ago, John Place. Nice to see you, John. But primarily we work with commercial, some government, but commercial software service startup companies and help them hire infrastructure professionals, but more so Linux, DevOps, not so much Windows nowadays, but kind of that infrastructure DevOps realm, and working with companies looking for that type of profile around the greater DC area.
Cool. All right, and finally, Adam Avitabile. Got it right this time.
No, you didn't.
Sorry. Adam is the talent acquisition lead for Ridgeline International. Ridgeline is, I believe, you're a government contractor, or you deal with.
I don't know. Are we? I'll tell you a little bit more.
Yeah. And if you want more information, RidgelineINTL.com gives you a company overview, and Join Ridgeline is their careers page. So, Adam, go for it.
Awesome. Hey, good morning, everyone. Name is Adam Avitabile. There you go, John. I'm actually a Marine Corps veteran. I served in the Marines, and the drill instructors and my fellow Marines had a lot of fun with my last name over the years, I'll tell you. But let me talk about Ridgeline real quick, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. So Ridgeline, we are a technology company. We like to call ourselves a tech company first, but we do happen to support the U.S. government. We've been in business for about 5.5 years, about to turn 6 in May. So super excited about that. But we've been primarily supporting the Intel community, and we started doing some commercial business as well. So that's a new adventure that we're starting to trickle into in the future. But a high level overview as far as what we do, the company itself, we do software and systems engineering, training and support. We have a very robust R&D lab on site where we're breaking stuff, innovating, and building new technologies. And we also provide offensive cyber, and we also do a lot of business solutions that are focused on tailored work, safeguarding our clients' data and communications. But what we do is we essentially build things from ground up. We're a company of nerds and geeks that like to tinker with technology and build custom technical solutions for our clients. A little bit about me, Adam. I've been in the recruiting, HR, people business for about 15 years. I actually got into recruiting back in my military days when I was doing a little bit of military recruiting, and I love the opportunity to be able to change somebody's life, to put them in an opportunity to better themselves. And I decided to hang my hat with a career in HR. I did that for a while, and now I'm focused on the recruiting and talent acquisition piece because I get to provide people with opportunities to do the best work of their life. So I'm super thrilled to be here. Can't wait to present to you here in a little bit. And thank you.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Adam. One other thing I'd like to point out is all the slides, whether the slides themselves or a link to the slides, will be on the presentation page after this. So you will have access to the information being presented, specifically all of the cards I have for each of them. So they will be available for those who are interested. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with some of the job hunting tips that I have acquired and come up with that have helped me in my job hunting in the past 25 years of work that I've been doing since I left the military. I'll be talking about emails, phone numbers, calendar, website, what I call a business card resume, and creating a portfolio. So email. I have created for myself an email that I literally only use for job hunting. I own my own domain, so I have my own email, which is resume@mydomain.com. My email is tied to Gmail. I use G Suite for it, and it's attached to my calendar. And why I use Google is I'll get to in a few moments when I talk about my website. The professional email. You don't want recruiters, whether it be Suzie, Brandon, or Adam, having to email you at ilikebigButts@example.com. You're not getting that job. It's not going to happen. So when you create your email for this, make sure it is professional. If it can be part of your name, that's even better, so it identifies you, but make sure it's professional. That you're not, this isn't a personal thing. With kind of in this sense, the recruiters are not your friends. I mean, when you're job hunting, they are not your friends. They are professionals. It is when you're job hunting, that is a professional relationship you have between yourself and the recruiters. I do consider Brandon and Suzie, and hopefully soon Adam, to be friends. But when it comes to recruiting and looking for a job, it's a professional, I talk to them in a professional way. I'm looking to put my best, most professional self forward. And the first way you do that is through your email. And as Peter said, when you're talking to them, yes, be friendly, because that's part of it. That's part of it as well, is professional and friendly. But coming with an unprofessional email is not the way. You don't want to do that. I mentioned that my domain is, I use Google Suites. I got it when they allowed 50 free accounts on Google Suites. So I create my own email address based on that. And again, my calendar. So if somebody sends me a calendar invite to my email, it automatically populates my calendar. And I'll explain the helpfulness of that in a bit. Phone. The other reason I have a separate email is I use my email for things like mailing lists and for information, technical information. And so I don't want to be sitting at work, because I use my personal email when I'm at work, and have my boss come up and look over my shoulder when I get an email from, John Smith at isuckatrecruiting.com saying that he has this wonderful Windows desktop support role that I would be perfect for. That's not something I want my boss to see. So I keep it separate. I don't access my job hunting email when I'm at work, especially when I have my boss around. And that's why it's always good to have a separate one because you can separate your life. Same with the phone number. I only use the phone number that I have for job hunting. It's on my resume. It's a Google Voice number, which Google Voice is a phone forwarding, and I can turn it off. So right now, if you were to call that number, it would pretty much directly go to voicemail telling you I'm not looking for a job. You can set up multiple outgoing voicemail messages, and you just set the one that you want to go outbound. So I have several different ones that I just switch depending on my job hunting situation at the time. And finally, voicemail is transcribed and emailed to you or sent by text or both. So it's helpful to get that and have a read and decide how much I want to, reply to that. And again, as I said, you can set your voicemail to match your job hunting status. I mentioned before calendars. You want your calendar attached to your email, so invites are added automatically. When I have my calendar, I put everything in my calendar. If I have a doctor's appointment, it's in my calendar. If during the spring, summer, and fall, I'm going to be out mowing my lawn, I put it in my calendar. I put everything that will take me away from my computer or my phone. So shopping, cutting grass, medical appointments, whatever. The reason for that is I have my calendar embedded in my website, and I train my recruiters that I work with to look at my calendar before they set up an appointment. So if they're gonna make a call, if they want to talk to me about something, they can look at the calendar and see right away whether or not I'm available to take that call. And it does help with the planning, and also when the recruiters, when they want to set up an interview for you, I give the recruiters I trust, I give the permission to set up a meeting based on my calendar. So you don't have the back and forth of a recruiter coming to you saying, hey, on Tuesday, example.com wants to have an interview. And then you have to go back and say, nope, I'm not available. And that back and forth tends to be, can be a rather big backlog in you finding a job. So if they have somewhere they can look and go with, it helps cut down that bottleneck. I mentioned my website. My website gives an overview of what I do and what I want out of my next job. It explains what I'm looking for in my work-life balance. And for me, that is important because, as many of you know, I have family in the UK. I travel to the UK 2 to 3 times a year. There are some companies that won't work for, especially companies like Suzie, who have clearances or government contracts or things like that. So it's very helpful to say, hey, check out my website. You'll see what I'm looking for and what I can and can't take. I have a link to a redacted resume in there. I don't have my street address. I don't have my phone number. I just have my name, email, and general location. For obvious reasons, it's out on the internet, and there are some freaky people out there that I really don't want to know I don't want them to know my phone number, even if I only use it for job hunting. And again, as I said, embed your calendar. Google Calendar gives you an iframe link in the settings that you can add to your website to link your calendar. It only shows appointments as you being busy. It doesn't tell people that, hey, I'm taking my dog to the vet, or I'm going to have reconstructive surgery, or things like that. It just says you're busy. So it rules out that privacy issue. And if you are interested, I do have 3 different sites. I link index.html to the situation.
I'm just sorry about that. There's the asshole here that talking to me. So here, okay, I'm gonna turn up my camera off.
Pardon? Okay. So yeah, if you go to just job.ennnoil.com, you will see the index.html is pointing to the current live page, which is I'm happy when I'm not looking. And I have the other 3. If you look at the 3 of them, it's very evident from each one from the beginning what stage of my job hunting I'm in. So it's very helpful. It's the first stop for a recruiter to go to know about me and what I'm looking for. I mentioned earlier business card resume. Essentially, it's a business card. On the business card, you've got your name, email, phone number, website, and put your desired job title. If you're looking to be a DevOps engineer, have that as the job title on your business card. On the back of your card, you can list skills. I've been a Linux sysadmin since 1999. I have been using Bash since 2003. Information like that. And that way, when you're out traveling, you never know when you're going to meet Susie, Adam, or Brandon on a bus or on the metro or on a flight. I have actually gotten 2 jobs in the UK off of having a business card resume with me while I was traveling. It just makes life easier. You just say, here, this is what I'm looking for if you get in a conversation. It's also easier to carry with you when we do finally get back to meeting in person and you go to that tech meetup. And as we like to do at ours, if I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. That train's left the station. Also, be sure to keep your business card resume up to date. Oh, that's what it was. When you go to a tech meetup, you don't want to carry, a stack of, resumes with you at, the NoVaLUG meeting. So just carry some business cards. We like to, after every meeting, get anyone looking for a job hooked up with anyone searching for people to work. And it's a great way to do it. Hand them your business card, say, hey, this is what I do. This is what I'm looking for. And it gives them a way to contact you and keep you in mind. Not many people do it, so it's probably going to make you stand out that much more, which really matters. Vistaprint.com. They're not a sponsor. They're just a good, cheap way to get, 50, 100 business cards for $10. You can design it yourself, and they're not really low quality cards. So, they go anywhere from $10 to $30 depending on what you want it to do. And I've used them before, and the cards are decent. Finally, a portfolio. If you're a web developer, your website is a great way to show off what you can do. GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, you'll see for all of these is a good resource to have and have on your business card resume so that a recruiter, or more importantly, the hiring manager, can look at what you're capable of doing. Get a free tier AWS account or DigitalOcean or Linode, whatever. Set up Docker there and throw in a bunch of example websites. Something that showcases what you can do, what you're capable For developers, again, having a public Git repo. There are some jobs where they will ask you to bring a laptop because they want you to do, some kind of technical test. Well, yeah, bring your laptop and show them what some of your work that you can do. It's also good to make sure that it's all personal work. Don't bring prior company work with you like that, because your former company may not appreciate that. And if they do happen to call for a reference, you really don't want them to say, yeah, they stole our stuff and they use it personally. You don't want them to say that. For DevOps, throw in your Git repo, scripts, Ansible, Puppet, Salt, Terraform, Chef, recipes, playbooks, whatever that you wrote. Show your Docker experience in there. Have Docker compose files or Docker files, anything to show what you can do with Docker. So those are some of the, a few of the things I do. I do find a lot of the recruiters really like the fact that I have my calendar on my website, because it does speed the process up. It makes things much, much easier. So that of all the things I do, that's the one I get the most comments on from recruiters. So it's something that you really want to seriously consider. So I know you guys will have questions, especially for the next three. If you could hold them until the end, because we are tight on time. Each section only is 15 minutes long, as you saw from the agenda. So we will have plenty of time. All three of our recruiters realize that we may run over 12 o'clock with questions and answers. So hopefully they'll be able to hang out with us beyond the time. So next up we have Suzie. Suzie, as I said, will be talking about recruiting in the cleared space. So I will hand it over to you, Suzie.
Fantastic. All right. Here. If that works. All right. I don't know. Can everyone see the screen? I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at, to be honest with you.
Yes, we can see.
All right, fantastic. All right. I don't know that I need to start off with any more introductions, since we did that previously. Thank you so much, John. I think one of the things that I am in cleared recruiting, and that's what I do, but it's also clearable. So I think I talked to a lot of individuals who don't have clearances, who are looking to move into that space. So I really wanted to speak to that today too. And to sort of help you understand what are the differences. Like everyone says they want a clearance, but do they really understand when they want it in the cleared space, what that requires? So when you're starting your search, one of the things that, I think about is, are they offering you the type of work that you want to be doing? Are they doing it in an environment, in an organizational culture that is sort of in keeping with what you're trying to do as a job seeker and what you want to do professionally? I think there are definitely pros and cons in the cleared space that you need to be conscientious of when you're pursuing those opportunities. There are in the high level cleared space, they may be doing really cutting edge work, but there are other cleared opportunities that are doing work in some very antiquated technologies, but because it is a cleared environment, they have not shifted to new technologies. Some of the work may not be as forward leaning. So they're just looking for somebody who can do the job, who has a clearance, but maybe working with old technology. So when you're looking at the jobs and you're applying to those positions, it's really important for you to understand what are the technologies that they're working in? Are they technologies that are going to be in keeping with your professional growth if you are technically curious? Or is it going to be sort of doing the same thing, I've had a lot of people who are doing Java, but Java, not even the current Java version. So because they just need them to do updates of old legacy systems. So that's just something that you need to be aware of. And those are questions that you have to ask. One of the things that is unique about in the cleared space is that, while you can do some of the development remotely, most of the work is being done on client site in a SCIF, meaning you cannot take your phone with you. You cannot take your own personal laptop with you, anything that has a camera in it. And there are people for whom have families, or they're they have, they're for whatever reason, they need to be constantly engaged. So it's understanding it's not just about getting the clearance and doing the work, but is it an environment that you feel comfortable working in for 7-8 hours a day, and only going out to, to get on the cell phone, you have to go out to your car or grab lunch or, leave the environment. So that's something that, organizational and team culture is something that you want to think about. Also in the cleared space, in some positions, not with all companies, there are companies who do work both in the federal space, in the cleared space, and who also do work in the commercial space. They tend to have a little bit more flexibility regarding their compensation, but if they're only doing federal government contract jobs, they are limited in terms of their salary by the caps that are provided to them by the labor categories for those federal contracts. So it's important to understand, while you could be a rock star developer and being offered by other companies some really high dollar values and equity, in the federal government contracting space, the majority of them have to be sort of compliant with labor categories, unless, like some companies, and I'm going to shout out to Ridgeline, you don't have to, you're being hired not for a particular contract, but you're hired to a team that will support many contracts. So that's something, again, organizational culture are questions you need to ask. How is their compensation structured? Are they limited by labor categories? Are there other opportunities for bonus structures, things like that? And so all of that will be sort of go into in your job search. What are the types of opportunities you're looking to pursue? If you are already cleared, most likely you are already employed. There is probably a very low unemployment rate with cleared people. So I'm really speaking to those individuals who are uncleared, who are looking to move into the cleared space. And there are plenty of opportunities for those individuals, because more and more companies are realizing, because of the limited population pool, that they are providing opportunities to be clearable, meaning they can take you in, hire you, work for a commercial project while you get your secret, top secret TS, TSSCI, or poly clearances, or upgrade your clearances as well. So those are all the things that you want to consider while you're doing your job search. Where you are going to start looking, there's, the standard job boards, again, Monster, Career Builder, Dice, but there are 2 job boards that I know are going to post those cleared jobs, and actually clearable jobs as well. And I think the industry leader, I think Dice owns them, is clearancejobs.com and clearjobs.net. One of the great things about those opportunities, if you are cleared and only looking for cleared jobs, those individuals who post on those job sites are vetted by those companies to ensure that they are not foreign nationals, which is a good thing. If you already have a clearance, I want to make sure you're not applying to a random job that does not have a reputation behind it. So I know that there's, some fear about that. But there are other places that also post cleared and clearable jobs. Again, the standard, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, all of them are good places to look if you are looking. One of the things that you're looking for if you already have a clearance, obviously, is typing in all the acronyms, so you're only pulling back those cleared positions. But if you are looking for clearable positions, you are looking for phrasing that says either the word clearable or U.S. citizens with the ability to obtain and maintain a clearance, a secret, top secret. I know Public Trust has a, I don't want to, can I call it a clearance? Yes. Is it a background check? Yes. Is it a clearance? No. The two, I know clearjobs.net and clearancejobs.com do a fabulous job of enabling you as an individual to understand what are the requirements for a secret, a top secret, because to obtain a secret clearance, you have to have U.S. citizenship. But if you have U.S. citizenship and you also have a dual citizenship, you cannot get a top secret clearance. So understanding that just because you're a citizen, it doesn't enable you to qualify for the higher level clearances. So the parameters for obtaining those clearances are well articulated on both of those two sites. So you can be informed as you apply for positions that are asking for you to be clearable. So you understand what that means. And traditionally, like a formal background check, they're looking for financial standing. They want to make sure you don't have any criminal backgrounds. They want to make sure that your relationships with and your activities are, up and up. And again, not against the U.S. best interests. So they're looking for those kinds of skill sets when they're assessing your clearance, your clearability. And if you are looking for, one of the things that in the pre-discussion here, we talked a little bit about salary ranges. Before Amazon and Microsoft hit the market, the cleared positions were offered at a premium. Typically, if you had a top secret, full scope poly, you could expect a premium in your salary as a developer or as a systems engineer if you had a clearance, possibly anywhere between 5 to 20% bump in your salary. However, the competitors in the market space have made it very competitive to actually walk away from clearances. So know that if you want to do research regarding the opportunities that are available to you as a clearable individual, it shouldn't be based just on salary, because some of those opportunities are clearly available in the commercial space as well as in the cleared space. And I don't know that sort of bump up is something that you should consider, but there is some benefit to those cleared positions, as in they're stable, meaning they're generally long-term. Even if you're not working on just one contract, more than likely you can move easily from contract to contract because of the type population within the cleared space. One of the things that I think is really important to make sure that if you have a clearance or if you are trying to pursue opportunities that will get you a clearance is how do you promote yourself in a I guess both a legal way and a compliant way. So if you already have a clearance, most of you are working with a facility security officer who is going to make you aware that there are certain things you can and cannot say on your resume if you are starting a job search. Most of them will require you to run your resume content to make sure that you're not sharing anything confidential in your content. I was at Booz Allen when someone had divulged some secret in their resume that was distributed to everyone in Booz Allen, and they shut us down and they wiped our system. So there are and this was again a while ago, but there are consequences. So make sure that if you are a cleared individual who is looking for a job, that you vetted your content in your resume before submitting it into an applicant tracking system or sharing it with recruiters. If you are thinking about how to promote yourself as someone who is clearable, again, I'm not going to be talking necessarily about public trust. I'm talking about secret, top secret, TSSCI, or poly. You want to make sure that you clearly articulate, and again, most people in this space don't necessarily need to say that I'm a US citizen, but add it to your resume. Add the word US citizen with the ability to be cleared, especially if you've had a clearance in the past, but don't currently have a clearance and want to get back into the cleared space. Articulate that you've held clearances in the past or you've been vetted in the past, because it makes it easier for people and recruiters like me who are looking for clearable people to understand the likelihood of you holding a clearance in the past and you being able to get it and obtain it and maintain it in the future is higher if you have had a clearance in the past. So don't eliminate that from your summary just because you don't think it's necessary. It's a differentiator, especially in the tech space. I know that how you promote yourself, again, joining particular groups makes it easier for recruiters who are searching for clearable or cleared individuals because they are members of certain groups within LinkedIn or Facebook or participating in certain meetup groups. With repositories, we're just really looking for the technical skill sets. Like John mentioned, I'm looking to see that if I'm looking for a systems engineer who has strong Python scripting skill sets, I'm going to make sure that you have a repository, public repository in GitHub, and then I'm going to contact you and ask, are you cleared? Do you have a clearance? Are you, are you interested in clear jobs? So if I'm recruiting off of GitHub, I really don't have any visibility into your clearance. However, if I'm pulling back information from LinkedIn or Facebook or Meetup that sort of suggests you are working for a defense company or a IC company, I'm going to put the two together and then reach out to you. So, and if you are clearable, again, indicating your ability to obtain a clearance or having held a past clearance it's a differentiator when I'm doing a job search on any of those platforms. And I just mentioned this here, some of the things, even if you don't mention you've held a clearance in the past, any indication that you are working for a federal or military past experience suggests to me that you've held a clearance or were cleared in the past. So those are the kinds of things, your ability to work, how are you able to work in the US? Again, if you indicate you're a US citizen, that is a differentiator as well. These are all the things that you would include that would help me when I'm doing keyword searches or when I'm using the tools that are doing aggregation for me, that these are the things that they're looking for to pull you back as from a sourcing perspective. How do I find you? These are the kinds of things that I would use to trigger you to come up in my searches. And I know that, we have both corporate recruiters here, but I'm going to speak to the agency side as well. There are different ways to engage corporate recruiters versus agency recruiters. So I'm going to highlight that because my background, I started in agency, loved it. It taught me about speed, efficiency. But it didn't necessarily teach me to be a great recruiter because I am doing at that time I was doing mass emails. If you had the word Java and clearance, you got that email asking you, are you ready for that dream job? But they are all about speed. They are looking for candidates who are going to respond to them quickly. They have 24, 48 hours generally to find the right person. So they're looking for the best fit in a short period of time. Whereas corporate recruiters tend to look for the best fit regardless, meaning they have to be able to work alongside these individuals. They have to report to the hiring managers on the regular. They're not looking for the best fit within a short period of time. They're looking for the best cultural fit within the organization. So there is not that necessarily that speed. So knowing when you are responding to emails from recruiters, having a better understanding regarding what is their perspective, the speed in responding to them may impact your ability to obtain that job or work with them. But knowing the best way to engage them makes it, manages your expectations as well as theirs. And I'm going to throw this out because, for those of you who have not been active job seekers in let's just say in the last 5 years, it has changed dramatically. I want to say, and Adam, and I don't know if you can, agree with me on here during your presentation, but they're the fastest growing set of technology tools have to be around recruiting. They have, and sales and recruiting. And so now I am relying not on the job boards. I can't tell you the last time I went to Dice or Monster or Career Builder. It's been at least 5 years since I've gone to any one of those sites. I rely on my social media aggregation tools that are pulling back profiles, especially in the tech space, pulling back people who are writing about the technology that they're using, who are contributing to their community via conferences, who are writing blogs, who are posting to their repositories on GitHub or any other repository forums. These tools that I'm using, like Hiring Solved or Talentbin, they're aggregating that information and bringing it back to me. So I know that, John Kennedy, I know, Meetup, I know what he's doing for me. I know that he is running the NoVaLUG Meetup. I also know that he may have a repository. I also know that he has a LinkedIn profile. I will probably also pull up a website if it uses his name. It'll bring all that to me in a profile. So I have a broader picture for those candidates. And so it's important when you are thinking about your job search, how you are presenting yourself on a variety of different social media platforms. I didn't include Reddit here because I know that's the one in the post that's been in the media recently, but recruiters are sourcing on a variety of different platforms, and these tools that we're using now are aggregating all of the social media content and bringing it to me in the form of a profile. And I use them because I am trying to target not the active job seeker that everyone's going to call, like I'm competing against my other recruiting colleagues. I'm not going to the standard forms. I'm looking for the passive job seeker. I'm looking for the inactive, the one who's doing the fantastic work that I need to steal away from one company and get them to work for one of my client sites. So how you present yourself on a variety of different platforms, not just in a resume, not just on LinkedIn, is going to be something that's going to elevate how you are found by recruiters like myself, and hopefully like my colleagues who are using the same tools. So I'll be happy to answer questions after we're done, but John, that sort of concludes. I hope that was helpful in some way.
Great. Thanks very much, Susie. Awesome. Lots of good information. So next, we will move on to Brandon, who will be talking about, from an IT recruiter, first searching, working with full-time positions and then contracts. So Brandon, no need to come back to me in between the two, just if you could, designate you're switching from one train to the other.
Sure, I can definitely talk about both. I've been in the agency field for a little over 8 years, been managing a team for a little over 6 years, but worked with a lot of companies primarily for full-time in the past, probably 4 or 5 years. We've done a lot within the contract realm, and we've been doing a lot more of that now. So I can definitely speak about that. John, I think you brought up a lot of good points in terms of just from a candidate's perspective, like helping out on the job search. One of the first things I typically ask candidates, like when I interact with them, is like, what are they interested in? What's their motivation? So for one, I think just knowing what you want when you do enter the job search, as that's typically a question I'm going to ask. And if I introduce you to a client of mine, that's something they want to know as well. But from my standpoint, I want to make that match as best as possible. So whether it's salary, not working in a 24/7 environment, something more remote, or technology, or et cetera, I think having an idea of like knowing what you want is definitely important. You made it really easy, John, just because you have it laid out all out there. But just having an idea of what's your motivation in terms of like your next job opportunity is a big factor. I think another thing is, especially for a lot of companies hiring a lot of different folks and seeing a lot of resumes, I'm happy and I will talk with anyone, but I've had plenty of calls where the client is just basically like if the resume is like 6 or 7 pages, or else if it's in a long resume, then that can be a turnoff for them. So being able to put together a concise resume, I think 2 to 4 pages is kind of the sweet spot. But from the feedback I get from companies, especially in the companies hiring for full-time, is the more concise you can have that on your resume, ideally 2 to 4 pages, the better. Just because a lot of times, typically a lot of times folks aren't scrolling through and looking through every little bullet point. So I would, definitely work to make it concise as possible. If you've had a lot of experience, you can have a section where at the bottom it basically kind of sums up the last 10 years of experience. But I think resume length is something I get feedback and pushback a lot. So that's something I would definitely, harp on. And also including like anything extracurricular, whether it be like, being part of like a, meetup group, or if you're involved in like, GitHub, if you have a GitHub, or you're contributing code, folks want to see that stuff. Generally everyone's kind of looking for like kind of the same type of profile. I never on a call with someone that says like, I'm looking for someone that's like, comes in 9, leaves at 5, whatever. Everyone's looking for someone that's like, really interested in technology, really passionate about learning, the new cutting edge stuff, and like looking to, take on more. So not saying necessarily be doing that, but if you do have like, set up like a private lab, or if you do contribute code to GitHub, if you are involved in the meetup scene, I would definitely include that on your resume, just because, it's going to make yourself stand out more. Especially for, again, a lot of these kind of companies that hire full time, they want someone that's like, involved with that. So no, I would definitely include that for anyone, or any resume that you have, if you do anything like kind of extracurricular about that. Another thing, especially for kind of companies that are like looking hiring for a full time, I will talk to anyone, but a lot of times, like if folks have had like a couple of jobs within like a short amount of time period, that's something like they're immediately going to ask me. So just be prepared to talk about, any short stints you've had at a position, and that way we can kind of better lay that up. But that's just a immediate question for that, and like, just being able to kind of talk about that can help remedy like any potential kind of red flags they have on their end. So not being afraid, and kind of being able to kind of talk about that. And then I guess going back on the resume part, there's a lot of kind of like a feedback or kind of things I get is, folks not being able to talk about things that are on the resume. So a big thing is, if you don't have experience with it or something, maybe like a Docker or Kubernetes or things like that, to put it simple, I wouldn't put anything on your resume that you're not able to kind of speak about like confidently. That's something like, I hear back and get like, I hear a lot of feedback on like, this person has Kubernetes all over his resume, and he can't really speak about that. So again, I would, my recommendation is like, if you're not confident about speaking in an interview, then I wouldn't put it in your resume. You can lay it up as like, hey, I'm learning, getting to containerizations or getting cloud computing in like in the personal section. But no, that's something like, they'll ask you, especially if they're really looking for that technology for that. But yeah, for perm, for kind of the perm positions that, we typically recruit for and like help place with, a lot of them are the commercial sector, and, you want to make your way, you want to essentially kind of like try to a way to kind of stand out. So, whether it be, a big project you've worked with, your involvement in terms of like the tech community, your stuff on GitHub or whatever, it's pretty competitive out there. So, you want to definitely make your way, make yourself kind of stand out one way or the other. Yeah, I think those are kind of the main points I would want to harp on in terms of the perm side. And I think like big part is like kind of knowing what you want. If you're interested in like a certain field, whether it be green energy or clearance or working at a startup, and I would definitely look to research some of the companies around that area that does that. And like, I'm happy to see if I have any ends with them, or go through the ones I know that kind of do that. But I think the motivation part, having a good concise resume you can speak about, and then like, being involved and have some sort of extracurricular goes a long way in terms of looking to find like a permanent role in the greater DC area. Transitioning to the contract section. So this is something we've started doing a lot over the past couple of years. And a big thing, a lot of times when candidates will like talk about kind of contract roles, as them not being interested, it's because they feel like it's short-term, try before you buy type of things. And sometimes it is a 3 or 6 months contract, and that's and if I know that I want to be transparent, let you know up front. But a lot of times there are large, well-known companies around this area that hire for contract or contract hire positions. So what I would say to someone that's like hesitant about contracting, if you have, full-time role, family, need benefits and that type of thing, there's certain extenuating factors that, you might not be interested in like a contract position, which is totally fine. But, if you're like on the fence about it, again, like there's a lot of like, big companies that around there that hire, contract hires. And typically, the interview process is quicker for that. And it's a good way to potentially get an in with a large company. So it could be, good way to get in with them, like working with them directly down the road. And then also, if it is like a contract position, like a 6 or 12-month contract, typically contract roles pay, a little bit more compared to salary in terms of just actually kind of bill rate. So it could be like a good, if you're a resume or skill set builder, like having like, X company, a well-known company on your resume is going to make you stand out a little bit more. So, I'd be open. I bet just hear about potential roles out there. Again, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances out there, but there are big well-known companies that hire just for contractors, and typically the interview process is quicker. They can pay a little bit more, and it could be a good resume and skill set builder. Going off a contract, there's different kind of types. Typically, the standard is 6-month contract to hire. That's what we see a lot of. Having an idea of is this like a 6-month or ongoing, or this is a short-term contract, obviously is paramount and on my end, and that's something I will definitely communicate with you. As I mentioned before, contract roles typically go a little bit quicker. So, I'd be prepared for, being prepared for a quicker interview process. There's been clients and companies I've worked with that, will hire somebody off of 1-hour interview. So I would, potentially be prepared for knowing if you're going to be ready to make a job search, after that, or, if you're not and you need some time. But, it's typically a lot quicker interview process. And I would say those are, and there's a lot more, and contract roles aren't often posted. So, I think, so having a contact like a recruiter or a contract company helps, just because, not every company, companies will typically post for their full-time jobs. I mean, not companies won't post for a contract position directly. So sometimes it could be a short-term need. Sometimes it's a thing that comes up, abruptly, but it's something that's not out there on the LinkedIn jobs or the job board or things like that. But I would say just, be open to hearing about it, just because, I've helped a lot of candidates that were on the fence about contracting or contract position. They tried it out, they like it, and it works out. And again, if your situation doesn't into that, and that's totally cool. But it could be a good chance to kind of build up your skill set, build up your resume, and get in with a company that's typically historically picky or doesn't hire a lot in terms of the full-time side. But yeah, I can take questions later, but those are kind of my main points for full-time and contract roles.
All righty. Thanks a lot, Brandon.
Thank you.
Let's see. One thing I also want to point out, and it was alluded to earlier, is don't expect your recruiter to know IT, to know how to write a pro script, or know how to do what you do. They don't need to know that. They just need to understand that there's a difference between Perl and Python, or there's a difference between writing a script and writing a program. So I've talked to a lot of recruiters who talk to people who expect them to know the tech inside and out. Don't do that, because they don't, and they really shouldn't have to. So I wanted to get that in there real quick, and then we will pass over to Adam and take it away, Adam.
All right, let me share my screen. All right, let me get a thumbs up from people.
Yeah, I see it.
They see my stuff. All right, awesome. All right, good morning, everybody. Again, name is Adam Avitabile. I'm talent acquisition lead here at Ridgeline. So you heard some great presentations from Suzie and Brandon, and they work on the agency side. I work on the corporate side of the house. I'm a corporate recruiter, in-house recruiter, internal recruiter, wherever you want to call us. But I represent the company, and I work directly for my company, and I'm invested in the overall success of my organization. My goal is to help my company scale and hiring the best talent in the market to help us get there and align the talent that's coming in the door with our organizational long-term goals as we look to grow. So let me dive into it. I'm going to give you guys an inside peek of the recruiting process. This is very vanilla. It will vary by organization, but the standard overall recruiting process for a company is open position, post and search, screen submit, we review your resume, and then offer, right? Working with an in-house recruiter, what I do is I take more of a strategic approach when it comes to my hires. It's not always about speed. Yeah, I do need to hire people quickly if we have a hot fill. But as folks had mentioned earlier, having the best fit is going to be important. When I open a position with a hiring manager, I literally take about 30 to 45 minutes and I sit down with that hiring manager and I have a strategy meeting and we talk about the ins and outs of what they're looking to hire for. So I can help better understand what the need is, and it helps me build institutional knowledge of the position. In addition to that, I will also interview somebody that's on the team to get better insight of what their day-to-day looks like, what the weeds are going to look like. If there's a fire, what does it look like, right? I want to know, I want to dig deep. I want to get my hands dirty to be able to articulate what the day-to-day would look like to my candidates as I'm speaking with them. Because my career is in your hand. Your career is in my hands, essentially, and I'm facilitating that potential move for you. So I want to ensure that's a good fit. So digging deep, doing all that fact finding is a big part of my job, and understanding the market, how many system engineers with a Linux background are out there, with a clearance or without a clearance. You want to, and I present that data to my hiring teams to help them understand what it looks like. And I'm able to forecast out, hey, it's going to take 40 days to potentially fill this position. And that's really what it's about. But I'm all about hitting the black on a target. And that's where my strategic approach goes. I think my boss told me the other day, I'm a precision shooter. I don't just bulk send my messages to 100 candidates. I actually will shortlist it and I'll reach out to 10 people that I think that would be a great fit. So let's dive into what these look like. All right. So for you as the candidate, you want to apply. And when you apply, if you're interested in a particular company, you're going to go to the career site, or you're going to find the job on a job board. What the recruiter does is there's a variety of things that we look at. We look at our applicants. We also look at our internal database, whoever has applied to the company previously. That's actually the first step. And then referrals. We love, like me personally, I love referrals. I would say for my company, over 50% of our hires come from referrals, because great people know great people, right? On previous teams or through existing relationships. If I'm not able to find people there, then I start looking at external sites. So let's talk about the application process real quick. When you apply as a job seeker, starting from the left, that's the company. You want to research the organization, making sure that it's a good fit. Does the company have a web presence? Is their website super vague, or does it provide a lot of information? It can be hit or miss. Review that, see if there's any information about the jobs out there. Is there a career site? Look at what's on there. Go to Glassdoor. Glassdoor is a great resource, or even Indeed Reviews is a great resource for candidates when they're shopping for a new job. It gives you some raw insight sometimes as far as individual experiences at a particular organization. If somebody wants to go work for Amazon or Ridgeline, you can see what people are talking about, and it will give you some of that information. News, right? Do a Google search on the company, see if they're in the news at all, see if they're making any headlines, making sure that they're not under watch for embezzlement or money laundering or anything crazy, right? You want to make sure that the company is reputable, have a good reputation. You know, I've seen companies, especially in the federal space, that have been underwater, especially overseas contractors doing some interesting things. So, you know, look at that stuff. Then look at the job, right? Am I a good fit? Do I qualify? Making sure that you're checking off all the boxes in the job. Does it sound interesting to you? And apply. So when you apply, you know, you drop your resume and your application, fill it out, and then you want to stand out from the herd, right? So let's say there's a job that you know that there's a lot of people that would apply to that job. You know, how do you stand out? Well, follow up. You know, send an email, send a LinkedIn message to a recruiter that works for that company. Do some due diligence on your end and just follow up. It's always good to stand out against the herd, especially for those positions that may potentially attract a high applicant flow. So I always love seeing messages from candidates. Here's some follow-up examples. So I had this guy on the left right here, hit me up on LinkedIn about an engineering position, right? I love this stuff. Like, this is like, all right, now this guy's on like the top of my radar, and I probably had like 30 to 40 applicants for this job. And matter of fact, I think we hired this guy. On the right, same deal. You know, they kind of go into a little bit of a short blip of what they've done, what they want to do, what they're interested in. And those are always good to just put you on our radar. So follow up. When you apply, right? So application review. So when you drop your resume into a company, here's the things that I'm looking at that I find important. You know, how's your resume look? You know, did you put time into it, or did you just slap it together? Are your skills relevant to the job? Do you have enough experience that the job posting is calling out? Or technology stack? So making sure that you're meeting those must-have skills and requirements is going to be important when you're dropping that application in your resume. Because if you're missing one or two, sometimes some companies have ATS systems, applicant tracking systems, that can filter you out automatically just based on keywords. And if you're not meeting those requirements, you'll get automatically disqualified. So making sure that your resume is updated is going to be important, and that it's matched and tailored to the job that you're interested in applying to. Certifications, do you have anything that's noteworthy, right? Cover letter, I really don't read cover letters. That's my own personal thing. I know some recruiters love cover letters. Depends on the position, but they're not always required. But, you know, if you do have, when I do a look at your resume and there's an employment history, you know, I'm looking for gaps. You know, if you do have a gap, you know, be prepared to talk about it and have a valid reason to be able to explain. Technology stack, right? If you've been using Angular 2 and, you know, I'm hiring for like somebody that, you know, is Angular 7 plus on the front end frameworks, I don't want to talk to you. Like, you know, make sure that your relevant tech stack's updated, and also quantify your accomplishments, right? A lot of people have a tendency to put like responsibilities on their resume. Like that's cool. Like, I get a good understanding of what a systems engineer does or a software developer does. Like, I know what they do, but tell me what you did. Why would I want to talk to you? Quantify your accomplishments. Did you lead a team? Did you design the UX UI for a new app that you're rolling out? Did you did you lead your team through the whole entire software development lifecycle from cradle to grave, all the way from design, all the way to deployment? Let's talk about that. Quantify that information. Did you design an infrastructure from ground up? Let's talk about it. Using Linux services. Did you use Ansible, right? To automate things. Let's talk about those things. And if you save company money, if you are able to increase revenues, dollars and cents always are positive things that we'd like to see. But it really depends on the position. But I want to see what you have accomplished in your most recent role. Now you apply, right? I don't always rely on applicants. This is just one of a million strings, guys. Don't judge. But we go hunting. I'm a full stack recruiter. I go hunting. I source like the best of them do, and I go all the way to the recruiting, and then I give people offers, right? So I do the whole shebang. But I go hunting. I look for people. So these are like some things that we're looking for, not just Ridgeline, but just in general. Like this is just an example. And when I'm running this search on Google, doing from Google dorking, right? Or if I'm looking on LinkedIn or Stack Overflow or any other of my tools that I like to use, I'm going to come up with candidates that I want to talk to. Then you would be your passive candidate. So that's how I'm finding you. And I want to hitch that. I want to find that purple unicorn. I think that's my goal, right? So, the goal is, what is your online presence? Do you have an online presence? Are you out there? How can I find you? Do you have a website? A lot of everybody already talked about this already, but I'm going to kind of reiterate. Do you have a website? Do you have white papers? Did you speak at a conference? Like this stuff gets me excited. I get fired up with this type of stuff because that just shows me that, hey, this person's a stud. Like I want to talk to them even more if they have that type of thing going on. LinkedIn, Indeed, Reddit, Instagram, all this crazy stuff. I'm all over it. So if there are relevant forums or job boards or anything that is relevant to your career, your job, or associations, get involved, make yourself discoverable. Now we found you, now what? So if a recruiter emails you about a job, hey, check it out, respond. I love responses. I hate when I spend a lot of time putting together an email and I don't get a response. I know there's a lot of junk out there, guys. I get it. A lot of recruiters just spray and pray, shotgun blast, you name it. There are recruiters like me that do take a lot of time on each individual candidate that we do reach out to. And I do a lot of research on that person. I look at their alma mater. I look at what their hobbies are. I do a thorough research on them. And I try to incorporate that into my messaging just to show a little love. Hey, bro, I looked at your stuff. I seen the work that you did. I checked out your GitHub. I looked at your blog. Man, that's some good writing. Let's talk about it. A lot of in-house recruiters are relationship builders and we're not transaction based. I love relationships with a good candidate, whether it's an opportunity for today, an opportunity for 6 months from now, or something down the road. It's always good to build that relationship. So it's always good to respond to a recruiter that's representing a company because, hey, you may not be looking today, but hey, do we know COVID was going to hit last March? Just saying. The world flipped upside down and people were out of work. If you had an in-house recruiter in your back pocket, you could have made a call. Just saying. Learn about the company and opportunity. Is it a good fit? Cool. If not, better luck next time, but stay connected. I encourage you to stay connected. Next steps. If you do get to that next step, if things look good, jobs like, hey, Adam, this job looks like a good fit, and things are aligned, be the best version of yourself, and be prepared to ask questions, to the recruiter, to us, when you're job hunting, what's on your grocery list, what's important to you, what are your hot buttons? When I'm looking for a company, there's things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for solid leadership, a good culture, good collaboration. A good question to ask today to employers: how did your company adapt to the pandemic? Ooh, right? That's real talk. How did your company adapt to the pandemic? Some companies scrambled, some companies shut their doors, some companies adapted incredibly well and were able to scale. And that's a great question. Like that puts companies on the spot. I want to hear that. I can tell you how my company adapted. I'd love to talk about that sometime. But ask those hard questions that are going to help you make a decision if this is a good fit or not. And that's why it's always good to talk to that recruiter. Interview tips. All right, so let's talk about this real quick. We're in the world of virtual interviews. These are just some pro tips that I just want to share with you all. I think it's important to know this. Obviously, a lot of it's common sense, but it's always good to see it. It's always good to do a mic check or test your connection beforehand. and also making sure your device is good to go. I always like to recommend you have a backup device. So if you know your computer is on the fritz, maybe have your mobile device on standby to be able to do that interview. As we do transition, eventually maybe down the road back to in-person interviews, I just recommend that the same old stuff, show up on time, be cordial, be friendly to the reception, and just establish a good relationship and just represent yourself, represent the best version of yourself while you're there. And the same thing applies to that virtual interview. Dress nice. Don't wear your hat backwards like I am right now. Top skills. These are just some of the things that I'm looking for these days and that are important to me and for my company and within the technology industry that I'm supporting. But other than that, I think I'm a little bit over, but I think we're good. And last thing I want to just tell you is, relationships matter. They mean a lot. So if you don't have a corporate or in-house recruiter in your back pocket, find one, establish a relationship, do the research. If there's a company that you always wanted to reach out, that you always wanted to work for, they always aspire to work for, make friends with the recruiters. Hey, John, I see you work at, I'm just using it because they're big, AWS. A lot of interesting things are going over there. I just want to make the connection. Cool. And then me as a recruiter, I get that email come in. Oh, cool. Like systems engineer, Linux. Hey, I might need that guy in like 3 weeks. So you never know. Build relationships. I'm always here to support you. I'm always available to coach you up. I love this stuff. I get fired up about helping people find careers and helping them do the best work of their life. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Adam. Couple of things I want to tack onto your last slide or your slide about virtual interviews. Check your background. Much like your I like big butts email, if your background looks unprofessional, you're not getting the job, because if you're interviewing virtually, there's a strong chance that you're going to be doing virtual calls, Zoom calls with customers, especially in my job. So if I had showed up with, a risque poster in the back, or something rude on the shelf, they don't want their customers to see that. So that's one thing you need to really, really look out for. And don't think that just because you've got a virtual background like I do, that lets you off the hook. Because if something goes wrong, if you move wrong, people can get glimpses of your background. And they're also within their right to say, hey, can you drop the background? We don't allow that on our calls when you work for us. If you drop the background and that stuff's there, then, again, you've just screwed yourself out of a job. The other thing is on in-person interviews, you mentioned briefly talking to the receptionist. Think about the fact that your interview starts when you pull into that parking lot, because many companies have CCTV cameras around the parking lots looking for, for whatever reason, for theft deterrent, etc. But that's not to say if a hiring manager wanted to look at the footage of you coming in and, seeing you being unprofessional, walking in, treating the receptionist like they're beneath you, anything like that, your interview starts the minute your car hits that parking lot. And you need to keep that in mind and keep yourself professional from start to finish. And it doesn't end until you're out of that parking lot and probably out of sight of the parking lot. So keep those things in mind. If you really didn't think the interview went that well, driving down the road with your middle finger out the window going bye, they who knows, they could see that. So thanks again. Thanks to all of our speakers. We will go ahead and open it up now. We've got at least almost a half hour for questions. So if you want to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself. If you don't want to be heard on YouTube, send your question in the chat, and please, in both cases, let us know who the question is for. So I'll open it up for questions. Come on, you guys gotta have a question.
So I've had experience on both sides of this equation, but both being the guy doing the interviews, mostly as a tech screener, but working heavily with the recruiters. And of course, I've also had to, let's say, the mixed pleasure of having to deal with recruiters in my past too. And definitely, it's not everyone works the same way. There are definitely good and they're definitely bad. Sort of like everyone in the business, everyone approaches it wrong. My general problem really is that, and you guys, I'm not doing this against you guys, but if we have a choice when we hire or we're looking for people, we do not want to go to recruiting. We find that we actually filled out the people we don't want that way often, if we even get them. That's really a problem. When all of a sudden the hiring managers feel that in order for them to get the right candidates and actually get the right interviews done, so we can actually figure out whether they have the skills or the motivation that we need on the teams, that we can't go to the recruiting. I don't know where the problem necessarily is. In my world, the problem really is that the recruiter, as you guys said, don't really know the technology and the problem space we're in. And hence, when someone being interviewed says X, and it's not on the recruiter's paper as X, then you get a thumbs down. And I've had so many talks when I coordinate with recruiters where I've had to teach them that when a candidate says that they know X, that actually means that they know this other stuff over here. I know it's a different word, but that actually is parallel. But because that knowledge isn't there, you get a thumbs down or at least a notch down, as maybe not as applicable as we want, right? So how do you see that dynamic? Where is it a recruiter can help if we assume that the recruiter is not the technical expert here? And how do we avoid those situations?
You're on mute, Suzie.
Sorry. I wanted to address, at least from my perspective, if we are doing our jobs as recruiters, our intake meetings with our hiring managers generally include sort of deal killer questions or questions that differentiate what I think good from great. And again, I'm going to give you a perfect example. I know what you're describing exactly. We had someone said, I need a DevOps person who really understands Kubernetes. And so we would, again, I understand where Kubernetes fits in a tech stack. I can ask questions that sort of gauge the player versus someone who just said, I was breathing the air around me and people were working on Kubernetes in the same room I was in. That's not the same thing. But I realized the people that we were sending over didn't have the depth of knowledge and they were constantly being rejected. So I would go back to the hiring manager and say, what are the differentiator questions that I can ask? And what is the expected response range? Meaning, give me tier one, if they answer this level question, they're novice. If they answer with this type of response, they're intermediate. If they say all of this, then I know that this person is the kind of person I want. So I have to pull that from the hiring manager because I don't know the difference between beginner, intermediate, and expert until they tell me what to look for. Now, the trick for me as a recruiter is to make sure I don't give away the answer, meaning I'm just asking the question and waiting for the candidate, and I'm literally just typing their response. And I'm telling that to the candidate as I'm working with them, saying, I need you to be clear about what you're responding, because someone's going to evaluate your level of knowledge based on so I need to really understand what you're communicating to me. So that to me it would address that question. Some of my clients are actually doing technical assessments where they are sending them again, I know Red Hat does this, either a HackerRank or some other form of technical assessment that was created by the hiring manager, where they have to spend an hour online and answer a couple questions, and then quickly they are able to determine what level of knowledge they bring to the table, what would need to be trained. Like, are they strong enough to understand the basics and it would take maybe 3 months to ramp up? Okay, possibly we'll interview them. So there are two ways to address that. And as a recruiter, you have to understand what that process is, because you need to really communicate that effectively to the candidate. And then you have to make sure that you communicate what the hiring manager is looking for to the candidate, so they know how to respond in a clear, articulate manner, what their level of knowledge is. I know that you posted this in the cleared space. Can you go into that level of depth? Yeah, you can speak in generic enough terms to say, I was able to use this product to move a certain amount of data from A to B, or I migrated, so you can speak in general terms. You can't give the specifics regarding the cleared data that you transferred, or you can't give specifics around location and day and time. However, you can give a broad description of the technology stack. You can give a broad description regarding the mission of the project. Again, broad. And if you've done your job, you've had your FSO review your content to be able to provide as much detail as you can without giving away secrets, government secrets. Yeah, because you definitely don't want to do that. So there is a balance between recruiters, the relationship between the recruiter and the hiring manager, to get as much as what's needed to eliminate I don't want to say the fakes. I don't want to call them fakes, but the novices who are just saying, I've been in that environment.
I would say when I'm on your side of it, or have been, I haven't done that for a couple of years, other than as a guest speaker, more or less. It's amazing how many are trying to apply for stuff they're not qualified for, and it's almost saddening when you're on that role and you go, "Why are you even calling me? You're wasting my time." And I've felt that many times. So I'm not saying that the candidates are angels or anything else, and everyone is always honest with what they say. Just the opposite. Like, that's part of what this process is about. My challenge to you is, I actually did the process you're talking about. I actually took, I made many pages of basically, here are questions, here are expected answers. The problem is that if I'm asking the recruiter to be the filter to say, who should you send on to me? They don't understand that in those answers, you have to apply some certain knowledge to understand what the candidate is saying to apply it, because they may not use the words exactly as written. And that has, that was one of my biggest challenges, was to educate the recruiters. And in the end, it ends up in what you sort of indicated. And I like that idea, is that you say, you take notes and send it on to someone else. But then I go, why not just send them to that person immediately? Right? And that's my problem, is if I'm being technically screened by someone who doesn't understand the field that I'm being screened for, perhaps the message should be, I'm not really being screened for my skills, but for something else. I like the idea where you go, what does the environment look like? Do you actually talk correct? Do you know how to speak? Do you know how to do all this stuff? Things that have nothing to do with the technology that I'm being looked for. And then if that passes, then this is a good team member. Now we need someone with the skills to actually do the screening to see if the capabilities are there.
Yeah, if I were to add to that, it really comes down to, like, do I understand the job and the position and what the day-to-day is? I like, me personally, like, I live and breathe what the engineer would do. Like, I sit next to them, like, walk me through what you're doing right now, and like, help me understand what XYZ is, because it allows me to gain that. And not every recruiter is that way, right? Not every recruiter has any interest, nor should they. But I'm a geek and I love that stuff, and I think that helps me elevate my role to a different level, to be able to understand and be able to reach out to candidates, to have those good conversations with them, to be able to gauge and assess. Now, as far as like the nitty gritty of the technical stuff, I actually will push that onto the hiring manager to make that fair assessment. I really don't want to get into it myself because I don't want to make a bad judgment call. I usually will assess on like cultural fit, communication skills, as you mentioned earlier. And honestly, what are your career goals? What do you want to accomplish? Right. And are you able to do what we need this person to do in this position? And I'm making sure those stars are aligned. Like if I'm talking to a software engineer that's been banging on the keyboard for the last 10 years, and I'm looking to hire a software engineer to do just that, cool. But if the candidate is like tired of banging on the keyboard, wants to lead teams and be more hands off, that's the type of information that I'm really pulling from the candidates there to making sure those stars align. And then if that seems good, there's a good fit, then I'm pushing them to the hiring manager for like a 30-minute, phone call, phone interview, phone chat. And then they're talking about the technical assessment and doing a very basic touch. And then beyond that, then we'll go into like a technical interview, which will be a little more in depth, depending on the position. That's my process.
I have a quick one, if I may. Susie, you mentioned that having dual nationality prevents you from obtaining secret clearance. Is that what I heard?
No, not even close. It is the citizenship. So, for example, I'm a dual citizen. So it's as a U.S. citizen, I can apply for a secret clearance, but as a dual citizen, you cannot apply for a top secret.
That's my.
Without relinquishing one of those, without relinquishing the other citizenship.
Okay. Yeah, and there is the fuzzy area that I guess I don't understand, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
I have a question from a chat. This is for Susie and Adam. Is there room for retirees thinking of coming back on a part-time basis? This person specifically is clearable, has a previous clearance, is available for remote work, and just wants to know, is that something that's a possibility?
I think more on the contract side, there's a lot of possibility there. I mean, there's a lot of 1099 work, right? That a lot of retirees pursue. I personally don't hire a lot of part-timers.
Neither do I.
But I mean, contract work is usually the go-to because you'll have the opportunity to work several short stints where there's this 3 to 6 month project. And as long as they're comfortable with, income fluctuations from the work that's given, then that'd probably be the best path that I would choose if I was in that position. Susie or Brandon, do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, and I'm just going to sort of say, I don't have a lot of part-time opportunities. So when a client is hiring me to do the work for them, they are traditionally looking for a full-time employee. If they are working 1099, that's not something they generally come to me for and would prefer to have full-time employment as opposed to part-time.
Yeah,
Adam, you
part-time
mentioned
roles I've worked to fill in the past have been on contract basis.
So what would be a good resource for this person to use in looking for what they mentioned, the part-time, a part-time contract?
There are so many of the the project-based work, Fiverr, that you can go online and support projects on a project-by-project basis and pull what you want. And it's actually great work for those people who are looking for a job, who are between jobs, to want to demonstrate that they are actively doing work. And they can provide examples of projects that they've worked on. So those platforms are ideal for those types of candidates.
And speaking of Fiverr and things like that, if you are between jobs, it's never a bad thing to look around, see if you can volunteer your services. If you're a web developer, I'm sure there are plenty of charities that are looking for people to help them with their website or general IT work. So the joy of that is A, you're giving back to the community. That's primary. You're helping the charity. But B, you've got resume fodder. So it was mentioned earlier, if you have a gap in your employment, you're now filling that gap. And so when you have that discussion and they say, okay, you left company A on this date, and you started with company B, 3 months later, what was happening? And it shows A, that you want to keep up with your skills, B, that you want to keep working, that you're motivated to do the job and keep going. So I meant to put that in mind, but I didn't. So I'll bring it up now. Any other questions?
Hey, Suzie, when you mentioned about mentioning your clearable or that you previously had a clearance, I generally avoided that because I was afraid that I previously had a clearance. Oh yeah, what happened to it? It's almost like the skill. It's almost like the gap in your resume problem. No, good thing.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, because most people, especially in the technology field, they're going from project to project. That's never been an indication of that you lost the clearance. And trust me, we're going to find out the minute we go into JPass. Someone's going to find out what your status was, and they'll find out very quickly. It's not something the recruiter would vet.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, clearances lapse all the time too, and people don't realize once there's a break in that service, they got 2-year grace period to get their clearance picked back up. If that clearance does not get any service or any love during that 2-year period, it gets archived.
Yeah, if you're not actively on a project that requires it, you get read off and you never come back, and not for a bad thing. It's just you happen to leave that or the customer left kind of thing.
Yep, but you got 2 years after you break from that project.
Thank you.
A quick question. It's gonna maybe off. Well, I don't know. If you're looking for, say, you're looking for a job with a smaller company, something. You're looking for something something where like it's not big enough to have recruiters, or where would they usually look for people?
Indeed.
CTO or engineering manager. I'll go on LinkedIn and see who like the direct engineering manager or CTO is and try to reach out to that person directly.
Yeah.
Okay, the last job I got, which was a while ago, was I got off a random listing in Craigslist, but that was a while ago, and I was just wondering, and it was a small company, and I had a great time there. So, and I've also had really weird experiences with recruiters. So.
Sorry about that. On behalf of our profession, sorry about that.
If you were with us a year and a half ago, I have some really good stories about recruiters and interviews over the years. I didn't have time to include them today, but
I think John has some of the best ones, without a doubt.
I have dealt with some awesome recruiters, shall we?
But one thing I will say, hi again, Brandon, by the way, I didn't forget about you. I'm a actually contract to hire guy. I actually went through that process. So, that as far as how small companies find people, that a lot of times they outsource it to, sometimes folks like Brandon or even the rest of it. They're cleared because at the end of the day, there's no size requirement, because I'm pretty sure their compensation is based on finder's fees and income and whatever else, stuff that you're not necessarily paying for. Somehow the employer's paying for it as a premium. But anyhow, the contract to hire model does work.
Yeah, well, the last time I was on something like that, the company got me through a temp service, and then the very next person they got through the temp service threatened to shoot everybody. So since I was from the same one, they looked at me really strangely for the rest of my time there.
If you're looking for something like that, just start looking at company web pages. Hit the, look at the career pages on company pages. Like if you look back at Adam's card that I threw up earlier, actually, I'm sharing my screen, so let's go back to it. Like they've got joinridgeline.com, or they also have a careers page off of their generic website. So there are places to look. You have to be you have to put more work into it
Yeah.
because you're having to look at all these individual companies as opposed to, going to Suzie or going to Brandon, who have a wide range of companies that come to them. So it's, and like I said, I can vouch for both Suzie and Brandon from the job hunting side. I've never had a clearance, but Suzie went over my resume with me, and I've known people who've worked with Suzie, so I can 100% vouch for both individuals and their companies. They're very good companies to work with. They both get to know you. Motion recruiting, part of their process is a face-to-face interview, whether it's now virtual or whether it's in the office when we can do that. And they spend the time to get to know you and what you're looking for. I'm sure Adam, Adam, obviously that's part of the process because he's kind of a little bit of a step beyond what they've done because you're talking to the company directly. But they, all three of these companies, and I've talked to Ridgeline before, just like I said, I don't have a clearance, and it's not that I'm not clearable, it's just with trips I take to the UK, it's not practical. But it, they work well with people. Everybody I've met at both sides of motion recruitment have been really good quality people, and I don't get any job details or job requests from them that are even that aren't within what I'm looking for. So there are a lot of crap recruiters out there, and all three of them will readily admit that. But none of those work for either of, with either of these three companies. I can very much attest to that. And if they did, they wouldn't be there long.
Thank you, John.
Amen.
So, okay, any other questions from anyone? I have one question, and I got it through a chat, and I kind of answered it. One of our people was asking, what is a 1099? My response is it's self-employment. No taxes taken out of your pay, but you still have to pay them on your own.
Pay it twice.
And no benefits at all are supplied. Is there anything else that somebody would need to know about 1099 work?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like your own contracting company, essentially. You do your own taxes, you take care of your benefits, whether it be like a third party or whatever, but it's your own contracting corporation that you get billed directly for, like you get paid directly from that.
And as a recruiter, I'm going to find out whether or not you're solo or you're a company, meaning the 1099 who is a sole proprietor, I'm more likely to hire as opposed to someone who's trying to build out their team because it might come at the cost of my client. So I know that I'll differentiate between the two.
Good.
Yeah. So.
Are
Right.
there a lot of people doing 1099? A lot of people trying to do their own. I mean, for me, it looks to be cumbersome that I don't want to take, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know.
Some people
Let me
thrive.
address
No,
that.
so,
This is
so-
Roger.
so
Let me
as
address
some-
that a little bit. We do
Okay,
our
go
own
ahead, Roger.
taxes with TurboTax, and TurboTax is fantastic. Once you get your initial data in, it carries it over from year to year. You need to manually enter the data from a 1099 unless you're with like an investment company where you can download the data. But taxes are not as crazy as one might think unless you have a very complicated sources of income.
You also have to be much better with your money than I am. because it would come tax time and I'd be like, oh shit, that's more than my paycheck. I'm in trouble. So, so you have to be have the willpower to withhold your own taxes.
I haven't hung my shingle out in quite a while, but the big thing with 1099s is as John's, there's no taxes taken out. Also, there's a self-employment hook too, and that's assuming you're a sole proprietor. I've never done the S corp thing or anything like that. But the other thing is too is at the end of the year, even if you have that money held back, if you owe a certain amount, then all of a sudden that triggers some other stuff with the IRS that the next year you're supposed to pay quarterly, or you start paying fines and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not terrible. I've done a lot of 1099 work, but luckily my primary job has eclipsed, the little bit I did 1099. But if that was my primary, I'm kind of with most other people, I'd probably try to avoid that, but I haven't had to try it either. So,
right. I spent about 15 years of my career as a self-employed person, basically. And yes, taxes are a little bit difficult. And I mean, compared to a wage earner, you are gonna deal with more complexities. But the upside of that is remember, you're your own entity now, right? You are not beholden to an employer saying you can only work for here, you can only do X, Y, and Z. You can have multiple contracts going on. You can even hire additional people to help you, create subtasks or help complete those. Everything that you buy or you need to use in order to do your work, it's your business, right? So they're all deductible. Your deductible for your office space, your equipment, or even the paper you use, back then it was paper, is all part of your business expenses. If you need to travel, a lot of the rules for traveling as a self-employed are a lot easier, because it's basically anything that is considered a business expense is expensable, deductible. So you don't have to count miles and do X, Y, and Z. The only difference comes if you need to do work for the government. And then typically you would have to go to another party to do that. And then you have some weird rules that you have to apply because the government sets up a ton of rules. So on one side, there is some complications. I remember the last year, I actually finally hired a accountant, and he just shook his head at me going, why the hell didn't you do this earlier? But I did my own stuff earlier, thinking that it was simple enough. And it was in the beginning. It was big enough that, small enough that me with my basic business degree could handle it. But it grows. So you're going to need professional help a little bit. But what they can do is to point out that, hey, if you did it this way, you can actually get more money out of it. Or you can set more money aside. You can have better insurance, or you can have, you can do things more efficiently. But it is more work. I mean, I did not have days with less than 12 hours work. Sometimes even more than that. I had all-nighters quite a lot, but I was much younger back then too. It's a lot of work to be your own independent contractor, but you set your own pace. You can basically pick and choose from a lot of opportunities that you can't otherwise do. So there's good sides and bad sides of being a 1099. And of course, the bad side, but everyone's saying, like, a lot of things that you're used to that your employer does for you, now you have to do it yourself, including insurance and a lot of other stuff that you take for granted, being an employee.
And, as Peter said, like everything, there's a good side and a bad side to everything. So, all right, if there are any other questions before we head to breakout rooms, but somebody wants to have a word before we do. So any other questions? All right, go for it, Roger.
This is Roger. I want to have a final word here. I'm just a minor player in this whole thing. We have to give great credit to the two Johns. They're doing a fantastic amount of work behind the scenes to organize all this stuff. John spends hours editing videos. He is running the program largely along with John Place. This presentation today is an example of his excellent organizational skills to bring together experts that we at NoVaLUG can benefit from their wisdom. And so the gratitude, the thanks that we owe to these guys is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. It's a great labor.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Johns.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording now. I've got to stop sharing to do that though. And then we'll head to breakout rooms, which won't be within Zoom. I have another link that I'll put up as soon as I stop the recording.